Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Time for a meatful meditation by Smithfield. We know a thing or two about meat. Close your eyes and visualize yourself prepping your favorite meaty meal like sizzling bacon, a flavor-packed and pre-marinated pork loin, or a juicy cut of ham. Now step closer to those high-quality meats and take a deep breath in and out. Go ahead and take a bite. Oh wait, you can't? Then it's time to stop the meditation and put the real quality meats from Smithfield on your plate. Smithfield, for the love of meat.
To get the Crime Writers on Aftershow right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, he went from NFL tight end to having 3 murder charges. We'll revisit our review of Gladiator, Aaron Hernandez and Football, Inc. from Wondery and the Boston Globe Spotlight team. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Wait a second there. What happened to love of my life?
Well, I'm responding to a complaint.
What?
An edge case. Oh, it's okay, Kevin. He's the love of my life. Everybody knows it. So, Kevin, what are we doing?
I feel like you're sending a message here.
I'm not.
Is that the way you would break it to me?
Stop. Do your job, Kevin. Do your job.
All right.
What's coming up on next week's show, Kevin?
Well, next week we're going to be talking about a podcast from WBUR. It's called Beyond All Repair. And Amber Hunt will be back again, filling in for Toby. And I can tell you we had a really great discussion about this.
Yeah, I would say tune into that one. And if you follow me on social media, spoiler alert, I freaking love Beyond All Repair.
Okay.
If you love the kind of episode where we hate something, and you love the kind of episode where we love something, you're going to love Monday's episode. So Kevin, what are we going to hear in today's CWO Classic Rewind?
Well, we're going back to our October 29th, 2018 review of Gladiator, Aaron Hernandez, and Football, Inc. Do you remember this one?
I do. I remember this being an interesting conversation for me, primarily because of our different perspectives on the Patriots, the Patriot way, and so forth. You know, I have strong opinions about Bill Belichick in particular.
Okay.
I don't remember if that came out in the discussion or not, but I may have come into it a little hot.
What do you think of Gronk? Is that okay?
Gronk's fine. You know, dopey dude. He's fine.
He's the other tight end. You know.
I know.
So, right.
I know who Gronk was. Now it's Belichick that I have feelings about.
Okay.
Not Gronk. Yeah.
All right. Well, we all have feelings about Bill Belichick.
Oh, and Tom Brady. I have feelings about that guy too.
Oh, I have good feelings about Tom Brady.
Not
But
me.
we digress. We digress, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. This is a very interesting podcast, and I remember the conversation being lively.
Okay, so why don't we get to it?
Moving on. The latest investigative podcast from Wondery and the Boston Globe Spotlight team is Gladiator, Aaron Hernandez and Football, Inc. The team at Spotlight examines the life of the athlete who went from being a star tight end to convicted murderer and all the factors that led Hernandez from high school sports hero to jailhouse suicide.
I said, Aaron, I'm hearing some things about you and this murderer.
A man who spiraled out of control, all while elite coaches and others in the football business looked the other way.
Police led former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez out of his mansion in handcuffs this morning, a shirt covering his chest and arms. At his arraignment this afternoon, the state charged Hernandez with murder, saying he orchestrated the killing of an associate, Odin Lloyd.
Gladiator promises to be an unflinching look at both the man and the machine of football that enabled his deadly downfall. We will be talking about plot points from Gladiator, so if you want to just skip to our spoiler-free review so you know if you should check it out, look for the time code embedded in our show notes. Now, we've talked about this before, so I'm not going to dwell on it super long, but Kevin, Wondery, the production house that produced Gladiator along with the Boston Globe Spotlight team, does have a very specific production style. The podcasts sound a specific way. We've said before, they sound like TV shows. They've got lots of Foley. They've got lots of like tape and music and like nothing's quiet and everything's very like boom, 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 boom. And we also have these very dry print reporters from Boston.
I kind of disagree with that.
Tell me how you like it. Do you think this works for this podcast?
I'm very surprised at how competent the print reporters are at tracking their lines and putting together this podcast. I actually think the music is very well done. It's orchestral. It's
football appropriate.
Right, there's some football, kind of stuff, but also I think that it highlights emotionally all the notes as they go along. So I think it's very well thought out, and I think it's very lush is how I would describe the production. It's lush.
I will just say, I think I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of the sound of Wondery podcast. To me, they do sound like the soundtracks of TV shows. But this one, to me, sounds more like the soundtrack of a Frontline episode than the soundtrack of an Investigation Discovery super cheesy true crime show. So I really like it in a way that I haven't really connected with a Wondery show before. Laura, what do you think of the rotating voices of these Boston Globe Spotlight reporters?
Hey, Laura, what do you think of them reporters from the paper?
They're wicked, super good.
Football.
You know what? I live here. I don't notice it. So I'm used to hearing people talk like this. I found the woman to be a little more lively than the man. He was pretty methodical in the way that he was delivering the facts and the story. But I you know what? At the same time, it was easy to follow and easy to listen to, and it was well set up and well organized. And it may not have been the most jazzy in terms of delivery, but it worked.
Now, Laura, there are two different men, right? There's Bob Holer, who's like sort of like the intro guy, and then there's I'm sorry, I forget the reporter's name. Episode 3 is another man who's
Bob Ryan.
Yes.
You know what? I think I missed that because I have to tell you, when I was listening to this, I was listening to the podcast, but I was walking on the indoor track at the YMCA, and I was like so pissed off about these people that got in front of me and like stopped and like walked so freaking slow that I think I lost track. I didn't know who was narrating because I was like, get the hell out of my way.
Yeah.
So I was following the story, maybe not necessarily as much the narrator.
I hear you. Well, episode 1 of this podcast is kind of an overview episode. It's the story of Aaron Hernandez's rise in sports, the crime he committed, the suicide he committed in prison. Now, we all come to this story with a different knowledge base about the story and also just about football and how like all this stuff kind of works and pieces together. Toby, how did you feel about episode 1 as an overview, and did it jibe with your memories of the Aaron Hernandez case?
Yeah, it pretty much did. I wasn't bored by it, even though I knew most of the stuff that they were talking about. I think it was a big case nationally, but certainly here it was huge and so kind of startling. I was expecting to hear more that I didn't know in that first episode, and I didn't that much, but it was still, it was well done, and I think did a good job of framing what was to come later.
Kevin, can you please just tell our audience, full disclosure, about your deep and abiding love of the Patriots, and what is your relationship to this Aaron Hernandez story?
Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan, and
no, you're not. You're like a super.
No,
Patriots.
I'm not a super. Right, I'm okay.
You text your mom during Patriots games about the Patriots. You are a super fan of the Patriots.
Okay, so I have a relationship with the Patriots.
To Kevin's defense, there's a lot of super fans.
That's right. It's a very New England thing that when I first moved to New England, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? It's just a football team. Calm down.
Yes.
And they were losers back then.
They were, yeah.
Ken's old hairdresser has a vanity plate. NH Pats fan.
Yeah. It's New England. I mean, the thing, if you don't live in the United States and like the whole like American obsession with sports is one thing, the New England relationship with its sports teams is on an unhealthy relationship. I'm just going to say it as somebody who like has lived here forever. I've lived here since early 1990s, but like I'm not originally from here. I'm comfortable telling you, Kevin, your relationship with the New England sports teams is an unhealthy one.
Just the Red Sox and the Patriots. I'm not a Bruins fan.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't feel that way about the Revolution?
The soccer team, no.
or the Boston Cannons?
The lacrosse team?
Professional lacrosse?
Oh, I didn't
Never even heard of them. All right, so Kevin,
No.
so how'd you feel about the Aaron Hernandez story, what happened, and then, the first episode of this podcast, did it cover it well for you?
I mean, like, emotionally, I cut him loose, It wasn't like going to be like, oh, like, I'll stand by Tom Brady for a Deflategate, but I'm like, Aaron Hernandez, like that guy, for fucking 3 murders? It's like, that's fine. You're done. So I don't have any allegiance to him as an athlete or a person. I do have, a sentimental allegiance to the Patriots. And so, but I'm ready to hear where they were bad actors. I mean, I don't think, I know that that's coming. Some of it's going to be like, yeah, well, I guess I probably shouldn't be surprised by, any professional football team doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
We haven't really gotten there yet, and I think that that's coming up. I'm not going to be an apologist for the Patriots, or at least I'm not going to try not to be.
Right. But I think that what you just said was interesting. You were like, I'm just not with him because of this, and this. Like, you kind of cut him off.
People stayed with OJ.
But episode 2 of this podcast, Bristol, I believe should be, we're nearing the end of 2018. I think episode 2 of this podcast should be, those lists of like top 10 podcast episodes of the year. Mm-hmm. For me, episode 2 of this podcast was brilliant, heartbreaking, meticulously reported look at Aaron Hernandez's childhood and life in Bristol, Connecticut, with these so-called like thugs that, you think about fellow patriots. I wrote this in the little blurb I wrote in Vulture this week about True Crime Podcasts. When Aaron Hernandez was arrested, so many people on the Patriots and around the Patriots were like, oh yeah, he had this habit of hanging out with this like bad crowd from Bristol. And it was a very easy story to spin. And this Spotlight team basically like takes that spin, throws it in the trash, and tells you this story about this real kids growing up in this super abusive, there's no other way to say it, household.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In this super sports infused community where the only way to prove your value as a human being if you happen to have a penis was by hurting other people on the field and being a man, this hyper toxically masculine place that he came from. Did you feel any differently about Aaron Hernandez when you heard episode 2 of this podcast?
Oh, yeah. I became some sympathetic for him in his situation and his family. His brother seemed to be like really upset. It's hard like when you have a relative who has done something bad like that, that how do you come to terms with the way you feel about them and how culpable are you for their crimes? But I think that it was an unflinching look at, what his background was, and not in a way that, again, was making excuses for him. It isn't like the brother said, well, of course he was going to turn out to be a killer because of what our dad did to us.
We also heard that those boys were sexually abused.
Yep.
And we also learned, and not through fake reporting about stupid suicide notes that didn't exist, but we heard that Aaron Hernandez was bisexual and that he had, relationships all the way back through high school, and that he really struggled with his identity his whole life, living in this toxic environment with this like horrible tyrant of a man. Laura Brigger, I know you're not a huge football fan. I know you don't have the same dysfunctional relationship with the Patriots that Kevin does.
Oh, come on.
As somebody who knows like nothing about this, what do you think?
Well, I have to say I am not I managed to find ways to like be in the same room when Fireman Ken is watching football and appear to be supporting all this by actually listening to audiobooks while the football game is on.
Brilliant.
So
Audible.com/crime.
Yeah. But I will say that listening to this second episode, I felt really badly for this guy as I'm listening. It's like the scene where his dad ends up punching the coach in the face.
And Dennis came walking off the field one day down at the midget football field there, and I had reached out my hand to shake with him and said, hey, no hard feelings. And, he kind of just did one of these numbers where he didn't look at me, didn't talk to me, kind of kept walking. And me being the person that I am that has to say the one thing that's just too much. And I says to him, Dennis, why are you being such an asshole about this? Well, he promptly turned around and clocked me one across the face.
What the fuck? Like, I thought that was just hockey parents. No, I guess it's football parents too. But it just, I mean, it gave you kind of a window into the fact that he was in a, tough situation. And to put it mildly, his out would have been to get out, go to college and play football. But then you hear this heartbreaking story about how, he's taken in by, was it his cousin?
Yeah.
Who used to babysit him after his father dies. And I mean, just sounded like a very stressful kind of childhood in a way, but it kind of sets it up for how when he got to the Patriots and when he got to college, he, emotionally wasn't at a maturity level to really be able to handle all of that. Because like, what kind of background did he have to prepare him for that?
One of the most poignant details of episode 2 that really brought home something in episode 1. Kevin, do you remember the incident that pissed off Tom Brady that Aaron Hernandez did during the
walkthrough with being goofy?
And what was he saying about, what was he calling Coach Belichick?
Calls him daddy.
Oh, daddy.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Oh, that he sees him as the authority figure that he wants to please, but is also...
Knows it's impossible.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, so much sadder when you hear that. Now, Toby, I know that you also saw episode 2 as a little bit of a morality play about toxic masculinity, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So what are your thoughts so far? I mean, you are a sports ball guy. I don't know what your thoughts were about the Hernandez case before now, but in hearing episode 2, and let's talk a little bit about episode 3... and Gator Nation, in which we hear how Aaron Hernandez is sort of like sucked in, chewed up and spit out as this super emotionally immature kid from an abusive home. What do you think at this point? Do you think that Aaron Hernandez might be like redeemable as a figure through this story? Or do you think that this is just going to be an interesting look at circumstances that led from one place to the next?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about it in terms of, is he redeemable? I mean, I think, he kind of did what he did and he's dead now. So that I think it's more a trying to understand, how did he get to there? They talk a little bit about like the culture change going to University of Florida from a high school in Connecticut.
Yep.
I mean, football is very different down south. And this didn't come up with this podcast, but college football is a really sort of destructive force,
yes.
I think, in our country.
The NCAA in general, I'd say, but football in particular.
Football's by far the worst in that there's so much money involved. Every football team's got 80 to 100 kids playing for it on scholarship. For, I guess, probably some Americans, but certainly people abroad who are listening, like you can go on the web and there's a map which shows the highest paid state employee in every state, and about 2/3 to 3/4 of them are the head football coaches at the big state university.
Yeah.
Right.
In New Hampshire, it was the hockey coach.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got this sort of outsized importance. Schools and college town police forces sweeping stuff under the rug to keep these kids eligible to play. It's shocking that they're willing to cover up a murder.
Yep.
The most common thing I think is sexual assault. I think it's a really sort of malignant force in our education system. Throw on top of that what we now know about CTE, in that a lot of these kids, like the vast majority, are never going to play professional football. And, they're doing this to their brains while they're playing college football. The details of the stuff surprised me, but the general picture was sort of exactly in keeping with what I would somewhat assume.
I have huge justice issues with the NCAA, period. I think that the amateur college athlete system is super BS. We get a really interesting example of something that, I've seen people on Twitter being like, oh yeah, of course. But I'm like, I didn't freaking know about it. Let's just talk about the fact that Aaron Hernandez, it sounds like very common practice, halfway through his senior year of high school, because he had committed to Florida, was taken out of school. The school was basically pressured into graduating him early. He had technically enough credits, but Kevin, you and I both have high school kids, and we both know that you might have enough credits, but you may not have taken all the classes you actually need to graduate.
Yeah, I don't see how that happens.
Exactly.
But
doesn't it sort of feel like cheating to have these kids come half a year early, spend a semester at the school where they're going to play the following year, learn all the plays. It seems like not okay.
Yeah.
And then they send them to community college to make up that.
To make up. Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. No, I'm surprised. I mean, I think like in a sense, like I don't know anybody who like got accepted to college in November and then just like
left.
Yeah, or stayed in high school, but just like flunked the whole thing. Just like got senioritis and didn't do anything, and then that was somehow detrimental to their enrollment the next fall. Because it's kind of like that.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, all right, I'm in. I've got a place to go, but now I'm just gonna like head on down with Tim Tebow of all people.
I know.
Get into a bar fight with Tim Tebow's there. It's like, okay.
Well, they had Jesus on their side.
Yeah, and just so I could study the playbook for next year.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then, Laura, I kept thinking about you when we hear that basically Florida and Urban Meyer, they basically have their own Saul Goodman down there.
Yeah.
Who's like their fixer, obstructing justice on behalf of these players. How'd you feel about that, Laura?
This is just bullshit. I was listening to this and I'm like, are you even kidding me? First of all, they're taking these kids in high school, which, I mean, I don't have a high schooler yet, but I'm thinking like mentally, emotionally, maturity-wise, I can't imagine these kids going. But the fact that Aaron Hernandez was one of like, 8 in that season.
Yep.
That were all there early from high school. And then this guy, I loved the description that they had of his office with all of his like paraphernalia for the Florida Gators up on the wall. And like, thanks for being part of the team. It was just like the old boys network was strong, so strong. And you notice the interview that they did with him was cut so short. It was like, I've answered enough. We're done here. And I'm like, whoa.
I liked him. I liked representing him. He's dead now. I'm going to respect his memory. What a nice way to get out of your own culpability, right?
Yeah. Be careful, Boston Globe. They're going to take you out in the swamp and dump you down with a gator. I mean, it was like, what is happening here? This just seems so unfair, long term to these kids, basically. And I was arguing with Ken about it. And he's like, what? I was like, it's this gladiator analogy is so accurate. And he's like, well, they're not like fighting lions or anything. And I'm like, yes, but like they're getting brain damaged and like for money. And what are they getting in the end? Community college credits? Like this is bullshit.
And by the way, and brain damage.
We have to find a way to monetize Laura's inevitable stroke.
We do. We should get a sponsor for that. Is there some sort of like blood thinning sponsor that would like
Eliquis?
Martha and Snoop Dogg need to send me some more wine.
A Bayer aspirin a day.
That's for heart attack.
Oh, you're right. It's for heart attack. You're right.
Anyway, carry on.
Right. Now, so the tease for episode 4, we hear how the Gators basically kind of tried to sabotage his recruitment by the NFL. Urban Meyer talks smack about him in advance of the draft. So his draft pick was super low. So they basically sucked him into their system, got a championship, got what they needed, and then were like, okay, and said to him, you need to leave the program now because you're more trouble than you're worth, essentially. And we get this
between the lines.
Yeah. And we get this tease that we now next week on this podcast are going to hear about the Patriots' culpability or role, at least, in the Aaron Hernandez story. Kevin, what do you want to hear in this episode next week?
I kind of know what is coming up.
Tell us.
So, all right, you've already been spoiler warned. If you still want to, last chance to jump ahead. There was a piece in the Globe today about the 10 things that they learned about Aaron Hernandez doing this, and it's already kind of jumped ahead. We're going to find out that Hernandez went to Bill Belichick, the coach of the Patriots,
Daddy,
and begged to be traded to a team on the West Coast because he feared for his safety in New England. And Belichick obviously refused. The Patriots also ended up getting him his own apartment. I think it's in Franklin, Massachusetts, or someplace that they refer to as the Flop House, a secret place for him to go. Wow. Also, Hernandez was always, he smoked marijuana about almost every day. He was always high. And
his shadow wouldn't pass a drug test?
His shadow wouldn't pass a drug test. And when he was in jail, he was extremely comfortable. You hear him on the phone calls talking about how he just loves his little cell and he's relaxed there and doesn't have the other stresses. And he ends up smoking an awful lot of, I think it's called K2. It's a synthetic marijuana that they can sneak in.
That's bad.
And it causes hallucinations. And he was smoking that the night that he committed suicide.
Yeah, but can we get back to the Patriots and how they had house for him just so they knew he was in trouble.
I got to see how it all fits together. Oh, yeah, sure. Well,
Wow.
yeah, they knew he thought he was in trouble. Let's see what they know, though.
Well, as Toby wrote to me in a note today, being a star athlete absolves you of a lot of sins. Just ask who, Toby?
Allegedly Ben Roethlisberger.
Allegedly Ben Roethlisberger. All right. Well, let's do what we do. And let's tell our listeners, should they check out Gladiator from Boston Globe's Spotlight team and Wondery? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Laura Bricker, I'm going to start with you.
I'm going to go thumbs up. I mean, anything that the Spotlight team does is well-researched, well done, has had resources put into it. Like I said, I'm not a football fan. This is an interesting story. I think there's a story behind the football that needs to be told that's going to be coming out.
What about you, Toby? Thumbs up or thumbs up for Gladiator from Wondery? And
thumbs up or thumbs up?
Sorry.
Thumbs up or thumbs
sorry,
up?
Sorry.
No, I give it a thumbs up. You anticipated it.
All right, I'm just going to leave it then. Yeah, me too. I actually think about the big smash hit Wondery podcast. The two that come to mind are Dr. Death and Dirty John. Mm-hmm. I think this podcast is far superior to both of those podcasts. I think this is the best podcast that Wondery has ever produced. I'm not talking about podcasts on the Wondery network that, they haven't produced. I'm talking about podcasts that Wondery has produced. This is by and far the best one. I have a tiny quibble, a production quibble besides all the sound stuff, is that the tracking, the voiceover stuff is edited a little too tightly together. I just, Kevin, I played you back episode 2, like the woman reporter whose name, I'm sorry, is escaping me, but like her sentences had no pauses between them. Like,
and I told you, you're fucking nuts.
Whoever is producing this show, please allow for like a breath between sentences, please. Just all I would ask, because otherwise this podcast is just really, really outstanding. I'm really loving it. Huge thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I'm thumbs up. It is a great podcast. It's an unflinching look here. And, I think that we as Americans are untroubled by certain things that we really should be troubled by. We don't care that Chinese children make our iPhones, and we don't care that people on minimum wage are flipping our burgers, and we certainly don't care that these athletes are slowly killing themselves every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to shed some light on that. That's Spotlight, right? So Spotlight. So while I think it's going to be a full view, a much more complete picture of the man who is Aaron Hernandez, I think it's also going to look at the way that this mysterious machine of football worked to help and hurt his development. I mean, if you think about it, this really is not going to be a good look for the NFL.
Hulu and Disney Plus just got a little closer for Disney Bundle subscribers. Because now, the hottest Hulu movies, shows, and originals are on Disney Plus. This is chemistry. Like The Bear, Only Murders in the Building, Abbott Elementary, and of course, Family Guy.
Nothing here but respectful synergy.
Next to your favorites from Disney Plus. For Disney Bundle subscribers, Hulu is now on Disney Plus. Starting at $9.99 a month. All of these and more now streaming. Disney Bundle subscription required. 18 and over only. Select Hulu content available via Disney Plus. Additional content only available via Hulu app. Terms and restrictions apply.
Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Time for a meatful meditation by Smithfield. We know a thing or two about meat. Close your eyes and visualize yourself prepping your favorite meaty meal like sizzling bacon, a flavor-packed and pre-marinated pork loin, or a juicy cut of ham. Now step closer to those high-quality meats and take a deep breath in and out. Go ahead and take a bite. Oh wait, you can't? Then it's time to stop the meditation and put the real quality meats from Smithfield on your plate. Smithfield, for the love of meat.
Kevin, that was a good discussion.
Yeah, from what you remember. I guess it's no secret to say we just dropped that in the middle. We didn't sit here and listen to it for 25, 30 minutes and then turn to each other and say, wow, that was really good.
Way to ruin the magic, Kevin.
Yeah, the magic must be ruined.
I remember it being a good discussion from way back when. Not from me just listening to it in 2018 time.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, it was very interesting.
Yeah, and we'll be back on Monday with our discussion of the podcast Beyond All Repair.
Don't miss that one. In the meantime, this show was recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also excel at all 3 phases of the game.
Yes. Hunt, hunt.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Partners in Crime Media.
Time for a meatful meditation by Smithfield. We know a thing or two about meat. Close your eyes and visualize yourself prepping your favorite meaty meal like sizzling bacon, a flavor-packed and pre-marinated pork loin, or a juicy cut of ham. Now step closer to those high-quality meats and take a deep breath in and out. Go ahead and take a bite. Oh wait, you can't? Then it's time to stop the meditation and put the real quality meats from Smithfield on your plate. Smithfield, for the love of meat.